Hey, what's up my friends? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and today I'm going to talk about 7 things you should know about the dark night of the soul. I have another video I did a while back that is 7 signs you're going through the dark night of the soul. So if you're unsure if you are or not, I'll leave a link somewhere where you can check that out. But I'm going to talk about this because it's a very challenging aspect and time of the spiritual awakening process, and it's, I think, a point where a lot of people are brought to their knees, so to speak, and it can be tough if they don't call it the dark night of the soul for no reason. So here are 7 things that I believe you should know that will help you with this period of your awakening. One of them is to understand essentially what it is. It's what people term a healing crisis. It's an acceleration of you healing. And by healing, it means shedding the ego structure that has kept you in bondage and in pain and seeing the world in an illusory sort of way, in a distorted way, not real, true perception. There's a lot of pain and baggage that human beings carry around with them unconsciously that distorts their experience of life. And the dark night of the soul is where you rid yourself of a lot of that in a very short span of time. But it's not fun. It's painful. But the end result is a far upgraded and more healed version of yourself. Number 2 is that it's a positive thing. It's something to be, it's a sign of, a big time sign of progress. A lot of people will contact me interested in coaching or just interested in talking to me. And when I get to engage with them, I'll kind of explain what I do, and they're like, well, I don't have any problems, man. I just want to learn how to manifest. I want to learn how to master the law of attraction, and I'm good. I don't really need any help with that. And I'm thinking, like, okay. They've yet to be humbled by the awakening. The awakening, this dark night, it's a very real, it's a very challenging thing for someone to transcend their ego, which is essentially what we're all doing. And sometimes, for some people, not everyone is, everyone's different, but for a decent amount of people, the beginning part of the awakening, it's kind of like the pink cloud. If you guys don't know what that means, it's a recovery. It's a term used to describe recovering addicts, where right when they get clean, they're on the pink cloud. They're not quite yet adjusted, and they're kind of like, oh yeah, man, I got this. This is good. You know, we're rolling. This is pretty easy. And then a few weeks into it, the pink cloud wears off. Their bubble pops, and they're like, oh my goodness. They're suddenly confronted with all of the emotions that they stuffed. It's flailing up at them. And it's kind of a similar unfoldment for people who are going through the awakening. It was kind of like that for me at a point. There was a point where I felt like activated, and like where synchronicity and divine timing was new and powerful. It was happening to me at an incredible rate, and it was new to me. So I had this spiritual cockiness, like almost like this savior complex. Like I'm impervious to any negativity. I'm the man. This is so easy. I'm so divine. I'm so spiritual. And then, the dark night hit, and I was humbled. But that's good. That's bound to wear off for most of you, and it's a good thing. It's a sign you're really getting into the process now, and you're getting into the deep stuff. That in transcending it, it's going to allow you to embody that high, that pink cloud state more consistently in a far more grounded and humble way. Number 3, this is I was talking to my wife last night as I was coming up with these 7 things, and I said, hey, can you help me with this, honey? She said, and what she spoke was, it tells you lies. And I said, oh, wow, interesting. What do you mean by that? And as she went on to explain it, I realized, that's a good point. And she kind of gave the example of when she was pregnant with our 3rd child. She said there was a time when she was driving the car, and she had the thought and like almost like the desire, the feeling to veer off and kill the whole family, just drive off into oncoming traffic. She had the thought saying, do this, kill yourself, kill the family. And at first she's like, oh my goodness, why am I having these thoughts? This is crazy. Similarly, I have clients sometimes that struggle with this. They say, I have these very disturbing thoughts, very clear thoughts that feel like they're coming from myself, like I want to do this crazy thing, I want to do that. The ego, the insane, unbalanced ego, becomes very loud and obnoxious during the dark night period, and it can really, you see it suddenly for the first time as it truly is, which is crazy. It's a crazy conditioned computer that is very fear-driven, and you're now aware of it. And sometimes we can mistake the ego thoughts for us. So if this is happening to you, remember, always you can question the thinker. You don't have to listen to it. You don't have to take counsel from the thinker. I mentioned this quote in a video before, but I think it's so perfect, so I'm going to do it again in case you haven't seen it. But famous General George Patton was once asked, don't you ever get afraid? Don't you have fear going into battle? He said, yes, of course. I have a lot of fear every time, but I don't take counsel from my fear. You don't have to listen to the thoughts. They're not really you. You don't have to take counsel from them and just kind of ignore them. It's okay. The fact that you are aware of the differentiation between the real you and those thoughts is huge. Number 4 is just a suggestion to help you maybe alleviate some stress. During the dark night, you oftentimes feel like you don't know who you are anymore. The old version of you, the old character, is just dying. And the new one, the real one, is yet to be seen or perceived or experienced. And it can make you feel like you gotta define yourself. I don't know who I am. And many times we desperately seek an alternative identity. But that's kind of recycling, that going through that same old cycle. I had a client I was speaking to just yesterday. She was saying that for a long time she went through life sort of abandoned by her parents, living on edge with sort of a skepticism of people, kind of like having to kind of fend for herself, that kind of mentality. And she met the man of her dreams, and she's now taken care of and doesn't really have to worry about anything. And he's just this really awesome guy that says, listen, honey, I want you to have an amazing life. Whatever you want to do. And that's obviously a good thing, right? But she was saying to me, I don't know who I am anymore. I operated in this mindset under the guise of this character for so long that I don't know who I am. And even though I've kind of had my dreams come true, I feel depressed. Why? It's very common. I've gone through this many, many times. For a long time, since I was like 13 or 14, I identified with being the fitness guy. I just loved exercise and eating healthy and just writing workout programs, and I've had hundreds of the Flex bodybuilding magazines. I would just voraciously devour that kind of content. So as I went through life, I was the fitness guy. I'd go to high school parties and people would come up to me, hey man, I can't lose weight, what do I do? And I'd make a nice little bullet point list for them. Anyway, I was Victor, the fitness guy. And then there came a point where I realized that wasn't my path anymore. But then it kind of begs the question, well, what is your path? Who are you then? And if not the fitness guy, who are you? And that period, that state of being, that void is uncomfortable. We have a natural inclination to define ourselves, to give ourselves a sense of comfort. But the whole idea of this dark night of the soul is to rid you of the burden of upholding the character. So allow it to fall away. Allow yourself to just wallow in the nothingness. And if you can do that for a little while, the real you will start to bubble up. And the way it happens in a practical sense, that sounds a little bit vague. What I'm saying is that you will start to get inspired ideas, motivations, inspirations. And you will, in a sense, from that point, start to recreate yourself, but in a far less attached way, but also at the same time in a far more authentic way. But for that to occur, you have to let go. Number 5, and I'm sure most of you know this and have gleaned this by now, but it's not just one night, the dark night of the soul. It's not just one time. It's a cycle that you will go through repeatedly at varying intervals to varying degrees. Sometimes it is a really crummy night, a random healing crisis, emotional catharsis, and you're just lying in bed in fetal position, sobbing uncontrollably, and you don't even know why. And you wake up the next day and you go to work and it's like nothing happened. Sometimes it's a funk. It's a period of a few months or a month where you're just you're just not with it. You're just like, it's like like gray skies every day in your mind and nothing's going well. You feel stuck. You feel hopeless. You feel depressed. You feel out of control. You feel like you can't connect to that divine spark that you once felt so strongly, and all that's left is this shell of an ego that's who you are, and you wonder, when is it going to end? Then you emerge out of that like a butterfly. But then you go back into the cocoon for some reason because there's more to be revealed. It's a process. But if you can just acknowledge that and say, okay, it is what it is, that's fine, I'm going to roll with it. And once you go through it one time, you know it ends and you benefit from it. Number 6 is just to kind of acknowledge again, sometimes I think seeing the dark night of the soul with a realistic perspective can help you a lot. But just understanding, you know this, that the truth sometimes can sting a little bit. People say ignorance is bliss. I don't know if I agree with that. I would say ignorance is kind of a means of having some sort of mediocre, illusory sense of comfort and fleeting contentment. But the truth hurts. It can burn, it can sting. So that's why a lot of people trade the ignorance for it. But you can't help that. You can't help but start realizing the truth about all things, about yourself, who you really are, where you really are, what it's all about here, the whole Earth game, the controlling corporations and the Illuminati and the chemtrails and the toxins in our food and just the realization of how much darkness exists everywhere you go. It hurts. It's a lot. It's a lot for your mind to wrap itself around, and it's a lot to process. But the truth is what's going to set you free. Freedom is priceless. And that's exactly what this dark night is helping you acquire and embody. Freedom. Real freedom. But all the old ways of acquiring what you thought was freedom and contentment no longer work. And we can find ourselves frantically attempting to do things that once satisfied us, but now no longer does. And that can create all this havoc and stress. None of it's working. You have to let go. That is the whole point of the dark night, to just let go and yield and allow. Number 7 is to remind you of a very simple phrase that I'm sure you've heard. This too shall pass. Every great storm that blows in, eventually, not always, but eventually it'll be kind of a rainbow. The clouds dissipate and the sun will shine and you'll walk outside and it's beautiful again. The dark night comes to an end. Daylight will shine again for you. But it'll be brighter. You will have changed. And everywhere you look around, you'll see with more clarity. You'll have more inner peace. You'll have more direction. You'll have a sense of purpose. You will deem that dark night, as treacherous as it was, totally worth it. But in the meantime, if you're not there yet, choose faith. Have faith. That's an option. We can dwell and label and ruminate and create stress. Or we can let go and just remain in faith. And once you see this through even one time, that faith will be a lot easier for your mind to believe in. Anyways, my friends, I've gone through this dark night many times throughout my journey, and every time I've come out a different person, literally. And the darker it has been, the more of a change I underwent. And I see them always as positive. I suffer still, I resist to an extent still, but I now know where it leads. And where it leads, it's totally worth it, as I mentioned. So hang in there, choose faith, this too shall pass, and you will be a brighter, better person because of it. You should be proud that you're allowing yourself to go through this. Not many people can handle this kind of experience, and if you're going through it, it means you're one of the rare souls who actually can. And the world needs people brave enough to truly look at their own darkness so they can transcend it and implement real change. Anyways, my friends, hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you got something out of it. Have an amazing day. I will speak to you soon. Namaste.